Discover the incredible moment. 3 lives transformed by a touching act of Mama Dog's kindness. In the heart of a small rural American town, the sun glimmered as a single moment unfolded, ready to change lives forever. Sam, a tired 35-year-old single mother, hastily made her way home from her second grueling job. Each day was a relentless grind, and daily dreams of a brighter future were overshadowed by bills piling up around her. As she approached the local community center, her weary eyes fell on a sight that caught her breath. A shivering Mama Dog and her tiny, trembling pups huddled together in a corner. In that fleeting moment, everything felt different. Sam's heart swelled, warmth flooding through her like lightning. She had always known love, but this love was raw and pure, igniting a flicker of hope in her chest. If anyone needed saving, it was them, these fragile creatures just waiting for someone to lift them up. This was her chance to bring a spark of joy into Lily's life. A chance to teach her daughter the essence of kindness amidst their struggles. Gathering all her strength, Sam carefully approached and whispered softly to the Mama Dog, extending a gentle hand in an act of compassion. The next day, Lily's laughter filled their cramped apartment as the newfound pups bounced around, tails wagging and eyes sparkling. The joy was infectious, and Sam watched in awe, her heart lightening with every bark. It was a turning point. Word spread through town like wildfire. This small act of grace resonated, cared for, and united the community even as it started to breathe life back into Sam's dreams. The whisper of hope even reached Mark, a rugged war veteran haunted by memories of distant gunfire. Locked in a self-imposed isolation. First hesitant, he slowly began to approach Sam and Lily, drawn to the warmth radiating from those innocent eyes. He couldn't ignore it. Something within him stirred. As he joined in caring for the dogs, moments of laughter broke through the dark his PTSD had created. Each interaction chipped away at the walls around his heart and mind, but darkness loomed. News swept through town. The beloved community center, a cherished gathering place, was on the chopping block. A slick developer stood ready to turn it into luxury apartments. Fear rippled through the residents, a fracture emerging among those who had once rallied together. Sam, Mark, and even little Lily felt the cracks deepen, their support for the dogs transforming into a fight for their community. As they prepared for the crucial town hall meeting, nerves electrified the air like a storm brewing on the horizon. Standing side by side, their hearts raced, and their words poured forth from places of fear, hope, and love. "We can't let greed tear our town apart," Mark said, his voice steadier than it had been in years, drawing strength from the bond formed through puppy-filled nights and shared laughter. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But just as Mark readied to speak, a sudden interruption made the room gasp. The unfamiliar figure at the back raised a hand, casting a shadow over the warmth they had begun to forge together. The moment was electric, tension thick in the air, as every heart raced. All eyes turned toward Mark, waiting for his next words. What he would say next just might alter the course of their lives forever. Mark's heart thundered in his chest as he stood there, his breath caught in his throat. The figure at the back of the room was tall and striking, with an air of authority that seemed to drain the warmth from the once vibrant crowd. Whispers began to flutter like disturbed leaves as people exchanged glances. Someone had interrupted their moment of unity, and that someone had the power to upend their community dreams. "Excuse me." The voice was smooth yet commanding, slicing through the tension. It belonged to a woman with sharp features and dressed impeccably. She approached the podium confidently, eyes scanning the room, her expression betraying nothing. "We're here to discuss the future of this town," she began, her voice echoing off the walls, almost drowning out the quiet murmurs. "And it's time to face facts. The community center is no longer a viable option. It's an outdated building with crumbling infrastructure." Mark could feel the collective gasp from those around him. Sam's small hand gripped his tight, her knuckles white. All his hopes of saving the place where he first met Sam and Lily felt like they were starting to slip away. He cleared his throat, determined to find his voice amid the growing unease. People need that community center. He called out, his words solid and clear, defying the fear that threatened to engulf him. It's more than just bricks and mortar. It's the heart of our town. The woman smirked slightly, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Sentimentality doesn't pay the bills. What we need is progress. The developer has plans for luxury apartments that will, I assure you, bring in much higher revenue. You want to talk about community? Let us talk about jobs, real jobs that this town desperately needs. As she spoke, voices of dissent rose from different corners of the room. People were standing, shouting over one another. Each person desperately reminding one another of happy memories, children playing basketball, parents attending classes, neighbors sewing quilts together. The weight of despair was palpable. Sam felt her heart shatter just a bit more with each passing sentence. She had believed their fight would unite everyone. But the developer's allure of new jobs was starting to take root, turning friends into divided factions. Lily, watching from beside her mother, sensed the rising tension. Mom, what is happening? Her innocent voice cut through the chaos, drawing everyone's attention. The room fell silent, all eyes now on the small girl. In that moment something shifted. Sam looked down into her daughter's wide eyes, finding strength in her. It's okay, sweetie, Sam said softly, forcing a smile to comfort both Lily and herself. We're fighting for our home, our people, and for those pups too. Mark, emboldened by the change in atmosphere, seized the moment. We believed in love and community for a reason. We can't let greed tear our pride apart. His voice rang out, cracking slightly with emotion, but just as Mark felt the swell of hope, the woman at the podium resumed, unwavering. All it takes is one vote to change everything. She smiled smugly, locking eyes with Mark. An icy shiver ran down his spine as he realized what was at stake more than just a building. Their dreams, their very lives, hung in the balance. Would this be the moment that broke them apart? As the crowd began to stir once more, Sam shot Mark a look filled with a mix of determination and fear. They knew they had to do something, and fast. The fight for their community had only just begun, and there were more layers to uncover. Mark leaned closer to Sam, whispering, "What if we set up a rally? Show them just how much we care." Sam nodded, feeling fire ignite within her chest. They couldn't give up now. United, they could face anything. But as Sam took a step forward, ready to act, a familiar bark echoed from the back. The mama dog and her pups had slipped in through the doors, tails wagging and eyes bright. And with that innocent intrusion came a realization maybe hope could rise from the most unexpected places. But just as they were ready to march forward, an unexpected figure stepped from behind the crowd, intent on shaking their very foundation. What did this newcomer bring to the fight for their community, and whose side were they really on? The room was still, as if time held its breath. The newcomer was a man in a worn brown jacket, his hair slightly disheveled, and he walked with a quiet confidence that turned heads. Mark squinted, trying to place him, wondering if he was just another face lost to the unforgiving churn of daily life. The man stepped closer, and as he did, the mama dog advanced, nudging his leg with her wet nose. It broke the stillness, drawing chuckles and smiles from the crowd, a breath of fresh air amid the tension. The puppies bounded around him, tails wagging wildly, their innocence radiating joy even in this fraught situation. "Looks like you have some supporters," the man said, crouching down to pet the mama dog. His voice was gentle, yet there was steel behind it, a determination that seemed to rise with the dog's affection. Mark felt a faint spark of curiosity. "Do you know the dog?" he asked, hoping this stranger had some connection that could help rally the crowd. The man smiled, eyes glinting with recognition as he scratched behind the mama dog's ears. "Not exactly, but I know what it means to have community behind you. Can change your life." Sam stepped forward, planting her hands on her hips. "And who are you?" She wasn't ready to let this moment slide into unrealized potential. "I'm Tom," he replied, holding her gaze. "I used to live in this town, long before it started losing its essence to big promises and flashy developments. I came back to see the place that raised me. It looks like it's still fighting to breathe." The crowd listened intently, absorbing his words. Mark's heart thudded in his chest. Could this man really hold the key to driving their efforts forward? "I got my career in the city, but I often think about this community center," Tom continued, his voice now rising above the whispers. I learned everything I know within those walls: how to play basketball, how to help neighbors, how to fight for what's right. The crowd rippled with murmurs. Each person could see bits of themselves in his stories, memories surfacing. Why are you here now? Someone shouted from the back. I'm here because I refuse to let the town of my childhood vanish into luxury apartments, he declared, passion igniting a fire in his voice. I want to help you save this place. Mark exchanged a glance with Sam. Hope glimmered like the last rays of sunlight before an evening storm. What do we need to do? She asked, feeling the urgency build in the air. Tom straightened, a grin breaking across his face. Let us plan that rally. We'll gather everyone, old friends, new families, everyone who believes in this community. It doesn't take much to show just how strong we are when we stand united. As he spoke, Mark felt a swell of energy. This was the type of leadership they needed. We can reach out through social media, share stories and pictures of what the community center means to us, he added, the ideas bubbling up like a refreshing stream. But it won't just be about the center, Tom insisted, his tone pivoting slightly. We have to remind people why community matters. We need to reconnect the heartstrings of this town. Lily tugged at Sam's sleeve, her curiosity piqued. What does heartstrings mean, Mommy? Sam knelt and explained, feeling the weight transform into urgency and hope. It means we're all connected. Every smile, every wave, every time we help each other, that makes us family. Around them, spirits lifted like balloons, memories surfacing and weaving together stories that bound the crowd. Mark could feel the tide turning. The whispers were now excited conversations about logistics and plans for printed flyers, social media outreach and gathering support. But as they began to formulate their plan, the smirking woman at the podium began to move closer, her presence swirling uncertainty back into the room. Are you all ready for this? Tom asked, locking eyes with Mark and Sam, full weight of trust resting on their shoulders. Mark nodded, the resolve shoring up like the walls of their community center. In that moment, excitement and dread intertwined, the culmination of their fight pulsating at the edge of a cliff waiting to leap. Then let us take back what's ours. The rallying cry was a quiet roar, growing until it filled the space, mingling with the bark of grateful pups. But just as they found their voices, that familiar smirk twisted on the woman's lips. With her hand resting on her phone, a new challenge loomed nearer. What would that mean for their fight? Would they be ready to face whatever she concocted next? The room buzzed with energy, a palpable mix of hope and determination. Tom took in the crowd, his presence igniting a fire that crackled in the air. People shifted, sorting through their feelings as they clung to the promise of change. Mark could see his neighbors' faces brightening, their eyes shining with the possibility of reclaiming their space. But the smirking woman was still there, actively listening. Mark's instincts kicked in, tension creasing his brow. She moved closer, her phone buzzing in her hand, but there was an intensity to her gaze that chilled the air. He could sense she wasn't just a bystander, she was a player in this game. What if they decide to turn off the electricity? She called out, feigning innocence, her lips curving with a sinister delight. Or what if they put up a fence? What if they simply close this place for good? You might just be wasting your breath. Immediately a hush fell over the crowd. All eyes darted from Tom to the woman, then back again. Doubt crept in like a slow fog rolling over a lake. Mark felt his heart sink, the flicker of hope dimming under the weight of her words. Don't listen to her, Tom said, his voice steady but rising above the mutterings. Fear is always loud, but it can't drown out the voice of community. We've faced challenges before, and that's what has brought us here today. The words resonated. Voices of agreement sparked back to life amidst the murmurs. Mark felt emboldened, determined to keep the spirit strong. She's right about one thing: the stakes are high. But we have something money can't buy. We have each other. Lily's little fingers clutched Sam's leg, looking up confused. How do we fight against a fence, Mommy? Sam knelt down, her eyes softening, heart full of the weight of this moment. We fight with our voices, our hearts, and with every bit of love we have for this place. Suddenly, laughter erupted from the crowd as a puppy tumbled over its own feet, chasing after a loose shoelace. It was small, but it was a reminder of innocence, of all the reasons they had to fight. The atmosphere lightened, smiles breaking through the clouds of doubt. See, Tom pointed. We rallied together, And we ignite that sense of belonging. The mama dog, her puppies, they know what community is. They bring us together like nothing else can. Mark nodded, encouraged by the imagery. We can engage families with events that bring everyone to the center, not just to save it, but to love it back to life. Everyone in the room started sharing ideas, voices blending into a chorus of excitement. Plans for a community picnic, a talent show, and even a dog parade erupted as laughter shattered the tension that had entwined them just moments before. But as the energy surged, Tom's eyes shifted back to the woman. She hadn't retreated. Instead, she stood tall, arms crossed, an unreadable expression on her face. It was as if she was calculating her next move, waiting for the right moment to strike. Just remember, she called out again, a shrewd glint in her eyes. Every action has a reaction, and not all reactions are as pleasant as those cute little puppies. A knot formed in Mark's stomach. Did they really understand what they were up against? Let us show her what our community can do, Tom shouted, rallying them once more. The crowd erupted again, but Mark's thoughts kept circling back to the woman's ominous warning. Were they truly prepared to face whatever obstacles awaited them? As they began to disperse with a mix of fervor and buzzing energy, Mark's mind churned with strategies, hopes, and the looming question that lingered like a shadow. What would happen next, and how far would they all be willing to go to protect what they held dear? The streets outside buzzed with a restless energy. Mark could feel the pulse of the community in every footstep, every cheer that ignited from a distance. They had ideas now, plans that felt like seeds ready to sprout. Yet, the shadow of the woman lingered, curling around his thoughts like smoke. He glanced at Sam and Lily, the warmth in their smiles pulling him back to the moment. The innocence in Lily's eyes stirred something deep within him, a spark that could grow into a flame. "We can do this," he whispered to Sam, a mix of certainty and fearful hope in his voice. As the crowd began to disperse, people poured into the streets, excitedly discussing their plans for the picnic, the talent show, and the dog parade that would cement their unity. Mark felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He knew the woman would be back, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not done fighting. "Mark!" A voice called out, and he turned to see Tom bounding toward him. "I need your help organizing the picnic. We can set up a great space in the park. Make it a big day for everyone." "Count me in," Mark replied, his heart racing with adrenaline. Together, they discussed logistics, laughter bubbling up as they planned games, food stalls, and activities for children. "Do you think she'll come?" Mark asked, glancing over his shoulder. Half expecting to find the woman lurking, Tom shrugged. "She might, but it won't matter. It's our moment now. We take this opportunity and run with it." The determination in Tom's voice was infectious. Mark nodded, feeling the fire rekindled. They pushed through the parade of people milling about, energized by the sense of possibility enveloping them. Later that night, as Mark sat on his porch, the soft twilight enveloped everything in a gentle embrace. He pulled out his notebook. Ideas spilled across the pages: flying kites, face painting, and community art projects. Underneath the scribbles, a line formed. "What if we invite her?" The thought startled him. Why would they want someone so cynical at their event? But maybe, just maybe, showing her the heart of their community could change her tune. He closed the notebook and leaned back in his chair, gazing up at the stars that twinkled like distant dreams. His heart felt heavy yet hopeful. What if that evening changed everything? And what if she was receptive to seeing a different side of the community? The next day in the park, the air was warm, thick with the smell of fresh grass and blossoming flowers. Families began to gather, laughter spilling like sunlight as the first games of the picnic kicked off. Mark watched as children ran freely, a voice booming in the air. Tom was already in full swing, orchestrating the unfolding fun. It was a beautiful sight. But then, just as he felt the warmth of community wrap around him, Mark's eyes caught a familiar figure at the edge of the festivities. The woman stood there, arms crossed, observing with the same smirk that had sent a chill through him the night before. "There she is," he muttered, uncertainty washing over him. He took a deep breath. If this day was meant to mark their fight, he had to confront not only the challenges but also the doubts embodied in her presence. Pushing aside the fear in his gut, he stepped forward, heart hammering in his chest. "Why don't you come and join us?" Mark called out, his voice steady despite the whirlwind inside. Her eyes narrowed, the smirk faltering. But what she didn't expect was the welcome that followed. The laughter of children punctuated the air, a melody of innocence and joy. Mark squared his shoulders as the woman continued to regard him with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The vibrant colors of the picnic spread like a canvas before her, a world teeming with life that contrasted sharply with the darkness that usually surrounded her. "Join us," he repeated, softer this time, the urgency in his voice dwindling. He gestured towards Tom, who was engaging a group of kids in a game. The sight brought a flicker of warmth to Mark's heart. "You might actually have some fun." For a moment her expression shifted, the smirk wavering like the shadow of a cloud passing across the sun. The crowd of families, friends, and laughter formed a barrier between them, yet it felt as if the space around her began to soften. "I don't belong here," she finally spoke, her voice cutting through the chatter of the park. There was a hint of vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. Mark felt a pang of sadness, for her an invitation could be a key, but she seemed so apprehensive about turning the lock. "You'd be amazed at how welcome you'd feel," he replied, injecting just enough hope into his tone. "Everyone is here because they want to connect. Just come over and see for yourself." As he spoke, he could sense the whispers of the crowd. People were starting to notice her presence, a ripple of curiosity echoing among them as they caught glimpses of the woman who had come to symbolize the challenges they faced. "Maybe she'll join us," someone muttered excitedly, while another simply grimaced, shaking their head. Mark's heart raced. Was he adding to the pressure she felt? Or was this the moment she could change? Before he could second-guess himself, Sam approached, a broad grin on her face and a paper plate piled high with goodies. "Hey, come on over. We have your favorite," she called out, waving the plate at the woman. "Hot dogs and lemonade, they're the best." The woman shifted her gaze to Sam, the ice in her demeanor thawing just a bit. Mark felt a swell of hope as he exchanged glances with Sam, who radiated warmth and sincerity. Taking a step closer, Mark lowered his voice. "What if you could see them as I do? They're really good people. They give so much to one another." "Why do you care?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "What is it to you if I'm here or not?" "Because I want to change the narrative," he said earnestly. "I want us to be better, to grow together. I don't want what's dark and cynical to overshadow all the good." With an apprehensive glance at the festivities surrounding them, she shifted her weight. "I don't think they'll accept me then." The unexpected happened. A little boy, no more than 6, dashed toward her. He tugged on her jacket, eyes wide like saucers. "Are you coming? You should come join. We're all having fun." The boy's innocence cut through the air like a knife, and Mark watched as her walls crumbled just a little. Their eyes met, and in that moment something shifted. Maybe it was the child's voice, so full of sincerity, that made her hesitate. Maybe it was the community's unwavering spirit she couldn't ignore. "Just give it a chance," Mark urged gently, his heart pounding as all eyes were now on her. The woman studied the crowd, the kids laughing and chasing one another, the camaraderie buzzing in the air. Then, with a deep breath that echoed around them, she stepped forward into the light of the picnic. But as she moved closer, a shadow flickered behind her, and Mark turned just in time to see something ominous lurking in the distance. Was this truly the moment of change, or another challenge waiting to unfold? As she stepped into the bright, bustling picnic, a mix of anticipation and insecurity filled the air. The laughter of children swirled around her like a warm breeze, tempting her to succumb to its charm. Mark held his breath, hoping she would embrace the moment. But in the back of his mind that flicker of darkness loomed, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The woman hesitated, only a few steps from the crowd. Mark caught the glances of bystanders, their expressions shifting from curiosity to cautious acceptance. He could feel their collective hope, but also their doubts, their faces revealing a longing for connection that mirrored her own inner turmoil. Just as that little boy turned to her again, summoning her forward with sheer delight, a low rumble echoed from the shadows behind the trees. Mark's heart dropped. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, trying to keep his tone light. He didn't want her to retreat right at that moment. The woman nodded, her eyes darting to the source of the sound. The laughter faded slightly, replaced by a collective tension as heads turned. Then from the edge of the park, a scruffy dog emerged, a small mutt with a tattered collar, its ribs visible beneath a matted coat. It snuffled around the picnic site, clearly lost but hoping for scraps. The little boy noticed it first. "Look, a dog!" he exclaimed, rushing towards the creature. The woman's hardened expression softened, tears glistening in her eyes as she watched the boy crouch down to offer the dog a piece of his hot dog. "Hey, little buddy," he said with a gentle voice, his small hand extended. The tension in the crowd dissolved, laughter rising again as others began to gather around the unexpected guest. Mark glanced at the woman, her gaze fixed on the scene unfolding in front of her. She leaned forward, her lips almost curving into a smile. Mark took a chance and stepped closer, feeling a momentary pulse of hope surge in the air. "Dogs have a way of bringing people together, don't they?" he remarked softly. "Yeah, they do," she murmured, her eyes glistening as she continued to watch. As the boy played with the mutt, kids soon joined in, beckoning for the dog to chase them. Their happiness filled the space, drowning out any remnants of skepticism. For that moment, the woman found herself caught in a whirlwind of laughter, warmth, and camaraderie she had shut herself off from for too long. Mark scanned the crowd, noticing how everyone moved closer, conversations bubbling as they pointed out the dog's antics. The woman's tough exterior, built from years of barriers, seemed to flicker. Maybe I do belong," she whispered, almost unsure. Just then the mutt sniffed around close to where she stood, and Mark felt a rush of courage. "Why don't you come join?" he encouraged, motioning toward the kids. "You could help us name him." Her gaze shifted from the dog to the community that had just embraced it so effortlessly. Could it be that she, too, could find a place among them? But before she could take a single step, that ominous rumble returned, louder this time. The crowd fell silent, eyes snapping back to the edge of the park. Mark felt his stomach twist. "What now?" "Something's coming," he said quietly, watching for what might emerge next. In that moment, the fragile connection they had forged she seemed so close to embracing was now hanging in the balance. Just as the tension thickened, he debated whether to protect her from whatever was looming or encourage her to stay and face it together. Would they have to confront the darkness together? Or would the moment of hope slip away just as quickly as it had arrived? The air was thick with anticipation, an unsettling mix of expectation and dread weaving through the crowd like the fading notes of laughter. Mark's eyes darted to the edge of the park, straining to see what had interrupted the newfound joy. Every heartbeat felt amplified, each silent second extending into eternity. The mutt, oblivious to the gathering tension, searched for food among the picnic baskets, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the trees. Mark turned to the woman, half hoping to draw strength from her presence. He met her gaze, and for the briefest moment, he thought he could see something in her eyes, a flicker of strength battling against doubt. "Stay with me," he urged quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded slowly, though a shadow passed over her features as she too sensed the impending storm. Then, from the thicket, a figure stumbled into view. A man, wild-haired and ragged, emerged from the underbrush, looking as though he had been living in the shadows. The crowd gasped collectively, a ripple of uncertainty flowing through the gathered families. "What do you want?" shouted a man with a red baseball cap, stepping forward protectively. The children, still enchanted by the dog, pivoted to look at this unexpected intruder, confusion clouding their innocent faces. Mark felt the woman stiffen beside him. He reached out, brushing his fingers against her arm, a silent promise that he wouldn't let her retreat. The stranger cast a glance around, wild eyes darting nervously, before settling on the mutt. I just wanted to help," he stammered, his voice cracking like dry leaves in the wind. "I saw him out here alone. I thought he might need a friend." Mark's thoughts raced, realizing that this man's struggle mirrored what so many in the crowd were feeling. Suddenly the discomfort shifted. The man didn't look dangerous. He looked desperate, lost like the dog he was trying to save. "Maybe everyone deserves a second chance," Mark whispered, encouragingly glancing at the woman. Her eyes widened, reflecting confusion and curiosity all at once. The crowd's tension began to dissolve, replaced by murmurs of sympathy. Parents looked at each other, children stepped closer, their innocence a shield against prejudice. The boy who had offered food to the dog now moved forward with his own, rushing to the man's side. "You can pet him. He's nice," he exclaimed excitedly. Mark felt a swell of hope as others followed, inching closer to the man, drawn by the boy's unfiltered kindness. Eyes turned from the stranger's wild exterior to the joy radiating from the small gathering around the dog. The woman began to breathe a little easier. Anguish and hesitation waned, replaced by an unexpected sense of belonging. It was a turning point. She could almost feel the weight of her walls crumbling. Mark leaned in, his heart racing. See, kindness can spark a change, even in the darkest of moments. As the man began to relax and crouch down to meet the boy and the dog, the crowd slowly encircled them, a tapestry woven from shared humanity. Laughter bubbled up again, more tentative but nonetheless hopeful. But the murmur of the crowd was broken when a loud crash resounded from the other side of the park. Everyone turned, eyes wide once more. Not again, Mark whispered, dread pooling in his stomach. What had come out of the shadows this time? Would the sense of connection they had built begin to tremble under the weight of fear once again? Or would they stand strong together in the face of uncertainty? Mark's heart pounded as he strained to see what had caused the chaos. The laughter that had filled the air mere moments ago was replaced by a collective gasp. He felt the woman beside him stiffen again, her grip tightening on his arm. "Stay close to me," he murmured, fear creeping into his voice. She nodded, her eyes locked on the scene unfolding at the edge of the park. Another crash echoed, splintering the air, and this time people began to shout. Mark glimpsed a group of kids, racing away from a fallen tree that had tumbled down near the playground. The tree's heavy branches had barely missed landing on a picnic table. But the danger was real. Panic soared like a wild bird in the crowd. "Everyone stay calm," shouted a woman with a clipboard, trying to maintain control among the rising tide of fear. Mark could see parents rushing to gather their children, some seeking shelter beneath nearby pavilions. Mark's stomach twisted. This was not the moment he wanted to see the warmth they had just begun to cultivate crumble away into chaos. He looked down, scanning for the boy who had drawn the crowd in. He found him still by the man, still petting the mutt, laughter ringing from his lips. The innocence of that scene only heightening the stark contrast to the danger outside their warm bubble. "Let's help clear the area," Mark said urgently, turning his attention back to the woman beside him. "We need to make sure everyone is safe." She nodded but hesitated, her eyes darting between the chaos and the peaceful moment with the dog. What if something happens?" she whispered. "Then we'll face it together," he replied, trying to inject courage into his words. In that moment he felt an undeniable strength in their connection. It's like the dog, he just found a friend in the man. We need to be friends to everyone here now more than ever. Taking a breath, Mark began directing people away from the fallen tree, urging them toward the parking lot, a safer area. The atmosphere felt electric, charged with fear and uncertainty, but together they could reshape it. "Come on, let us move," he called out to a group of parents huddled together, their faces pale and anxious. They looked at him, hesitation flickering in their eyes. "We need to help each other right now." A few began to follow, starting a chain reaction, others joining until a small band of voices emerged, supporting each other through the fear. Back at the dog and the man, the boy remained by their side, as if guarding the fragility of the moment. The man caught Mark's eye and gave a tight-lipped smile, recognizing the threads of hope weaving themselves around the crowd once more. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mark thought to himself, echoing the belief that had ignited in him earlier. If they could stand together, they could face anything. But just then, the tree in the distance creaked again ominously, the sound seeping into the air like a warning. The crowd froze, eyes darting. "Let us go," Mark yelled, adrenaline pushing him forward. "Time to create our own safety." The newfound unity charged the air. But a distant shout brought them all to a halt. In that frozen instant of collective breath, Mark's stomach dropped. Had they done enough to protect each other? What new storm lay before them, threatening to shatter the fragile hope they had built? Would their courage hold in the face of whatever chaos was drawing close? Mark's heart raced as the tension wrapped around him like a thick fog. He watched the crowd, a kaleidoscope of fear and uncertainty carving through the air. Each person represented a thread in the fabric of their community. Sam clutched Lily's hand, her eyes scanning the chaos with worry. Just as Mark turned toward the fallen tree, ready to bolster the gathering, a distant voices carried into the air, shouting for calm amidst the clatter. It's okay. We're here. Everyone stay together. The assertive voice belonged to Tom, who had rallied others, standing firm among joyful chaos. Now's the time to prove our strength, Mark shouted, emboldened by Tom's leadership. The crowd began to move, instinctively responding to the wave of unity. They corralled children, ushering them away from the danger, some instinctively joining hands as they formed a protective circle around others. The light laughter from earlier had morphed into brave cries of "Let's go! This way! And we can do it together!" The woman beside Mark, whose name still remained a mystery, hesitated briefly before the power of community pulled her along. "Help me!" she shouted, the suddenness of her voice startling even herself. "Hold my hand, we can move these kids." It was as if a dam had broken within her. Mark felt a rush of gratitude and astonishment. "That's it. Let us guide them," he exclaimed, rallying toward her, a shared determination igniting between them. "We can help everyone. Just follow me." As they moved through the crowd, he could feel a transformation unfold not just in the woman, but within himself too. Each child saved, each parent safeguarded rain-stilled faith in what they had started to build as they ushered everyone towards safety. A flicker caught his attention. It was the boy, the one who had been playing with the dog, suddenly still, standing at the foot of the tree, eyes wide with fear and confusion. In a heartbeat, Mark's instincts pulled him toward the child. "No, come back," he shouted as he lunged toward the boy, who seemed frozen, rooted to the spot, watching the chaos unfold with wide, innocent eyes. Mark reached him just as the tree creaked ominously above. "Hey buddy, let us get you to safety," Mark called, scooping the boy up and turning on his heel, determination propelling him as the people behind them began to scatter. The boy clung tightly to Mark's neck. Meanwhile, the woman took a few steps back, fear recapturing her as she glanced at the tree. "Will it fall?" she whispered, and Mark could feel her uncertainty cutting through the urgency. This wasn't just about safety. It was about facing their shadows together. "It doesn't matter," Mark declared, his voice fired by the urgency and clarity he felt just then. "Nothing matters more than fighting for each other." With that, he and the woman locked eyes and formed a pact, their unspoken agreement solidifying the change bubbling within them. They turned their attention to the rest of the community, who were now glimmering with collective resilience. "Everyone, let us gather on the other side. We're safe together. Move it." Tom's voice temporarily silenced worry, affirming resolve. Mark, with the boy still held against his chest, surged ahead, and slowly others began to follow as adrenaline coursed through the crowd like lifeblood. "Together. Let us keep moving." Just when Mark thought they might have escaped the worst, a heavy thud echoed. It was the tree moving again, suddenly unstable. The woman yelped as branches cracked ominously and swayed low. Instinctively she reached out, grabbing Mark's arm for balance. Without thinking, they dove forward, landing on the ground as the tree splintered behind them. Breathless, the relief washed over them as sounds of cheer began to erupt from behind. They had made it. The park transformed, laughter returned and tears fell. But now they were tears of release, of relief. They had faced danger together. The woman, finally pulling away from Mark, looked around, a radiant smile emerging from her once guarded demeanor. "That was amazing," she said softly, awe coloring her voice. "Maybe I do belong here." Mark beamed, his heart swelling. "Yes, we all belong together, that's what it's about. We just showed what we can do side by side." And with renewed purpose, they turned back toward the gathering group. Sam and Lily were there, her arms enveloping Mark and the boy as he navigated back to his mother. She kneeled, joy spilling from her eyes. "We did it," Lily exclaimed, bouncing on her toes, the little explorer who had solidified everyone's connection. They turned to find Tom at their side, a proud grin plastered on his face. "Let us celebrate this. We have a community to protect, and we just proved it together. Let us organize again, let it be bigger than ever." The woman who had once felt like a shadow in Mark's life stepped forward, heart now wide open. "Can I help too?" she asked, a hint of incredulity in her voice. Mark gave her an encouraging nod, feeling warmth wash over his chest. "Absolutely. We'd be better with you." As everyone erupted into enthusiastic cheers, Mark realized their story had only just begun. Challenges would remain. But within that park, laughter and connection still stood resilient. It was a promise of the love that would find its way back, pushing aside fear for community, kindness, hope, and change. And it was time for a deeper connection to thrive. If you felt inspired by this story of transformation and community, then listen up. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on more incredible stories. Leave a like right now to give the algorithm the energy it needs. Your support is vital. Comment below with your thoughts about this ending. We want to hear your reactions. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this journey. Don't wait not even one more second to spread hope and inspiration. Thank you for being part of this community.